I know, it sounds like crazy talk or that exaggeration just to get attention. You must be thinking, but where are the nuclear bombs and the end of the world? If you think that war is only what appears in movies, that is where you can lose everything. The game has changed now. While we talk, movements in Russia, Venezuela, and China are altering the global economy at this exact moment. That is why I gathered analyses from geopolitics experts that most people ignore, to give you the real view of the board and put you ahead of the herd. Forget the apocalypse. The reality is different, and we need to understand this fast. Before I show you the proofs, I want to test your instinct. If you had to bet today, would you say we are living only a tense phase, or that we are in fact in a silent war? Pause the video now and comment down below your sincere opinion before seeing the rest. I want to see who is tuned in to what is really happening. Think with me, if the world ended in nuclear explosions, we wouldn't even have a way to discuss if this would disrupt the economy or not. It wouldn't make the slightest sense to keep debating how much the dollar costs, or if company stocks went up or down, because the main currency of exchange would turn into clean water and canned food. But there is a very serious point of attention here that we need to talk about. The theory that many experienced political analysts are raising is that the global conflict has already started. Yes, but it is passing on television, in newspapers, and on the internet without the majority of people realizing the gravity of the situation. There is a guy named John Simpson, who is the editor of international affairs for the British Broadcasting Corporation, that famous news network from the United Kingdom. He has decades of experience and has covered dozens of armed conflicts. He raised this issue and suggests that we need to rethink what we understand by world war. Instead of being that fight with atomic bombs all at once, what we are seeing is a complex set of diplomatic and military maneuvers. It is like a strategy game, you know. They are exchanges of partnerships between countries, forced agreements, and countries taking over territories of others in plain sight, everything happening right in front of us. Take a look at today's scenario. We have Russia taking parts of Ukraine's territory for itself. There is a very intense movement of conversation between rulers, where figures like Donald Trump suggest negotiations in which Ukraine might have to hand over pieces of its own country in exchange for peace. At the same time, we see discussions about who controls Venezuela and even declared intentions by the United States to buy or control Greenland. It might seem absurd to think of buying a gigantic island that belongs to Denmark and is part of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, but this shows that they want to expand and have strategic control of more places. On the other side of the world, China continues promising to assume control of Taiwan in the coming years. In other words, there are 3 different continents with disputes happening at the same time. This view is not just mine or this journalist's. Even Pope Francis has already said that we are living a third world war, only in pieces, happening little by little. The conflict ceases to be just a local fight when the economy of all involved countries changes to respond to this reality of war. We are entering what they call a war economy. And if you are enjoying this analysis that escapes the obvious and really prepares you for this complex scenario, do your part already. Leave the like and leave the hype. This is very important to show that you want to continue receiving elite information to protect your pocket while the majority only consumes shallow news. Historically, when a global crisis and a lot of uncertainty happen, it is normal for people who invest money to take the cash out of public and private bonds, which are investments that depend on government decisions and seek independent things. In the past, the refuge, the safe place for money, was almost always precious metals, like gold. Today, we have the alternative of digital assets. The logic is the same. Protect your wealth in something that does not depend on decisions of politicians, physical borders, or crises in the banks of a specific country. Diversification, that is, not putting all your eggs in one basket, is the secret to surviving financially. Having real estate in different countries, stocks in varied markets, and a part in crypto assets is a way to ensure that, if a region crashes, you do not lose everything. Large investors are migrating to Bitcoin precisely because it cannot be seized or artificially inflated by a government in times of war. This war dynamic messes with the economy in a dangerous way. Russia, for example, took almost half of the entire budget of the country and sent it to the military part. The Russian economy today revolves around producing ammunition, weapons, and combat vehicles, leaving aside essential things like health and infrastructure construction for the people. When a country spends so much money from the budget on war, the conflict becomes the engine of the economy, and stopping the fight becomes difficult because if it stops, the economy stops too. Europe, sensing the danger, also started to arm itself again, investing hundreds of billions of euros in defense. The result is a world where the weapons industry assumes the leadership of the economy, generating jobs and innovations, but depending on the fights continuing to sustain itself. Now, bringing this to our daily life and to the financial market of this week, it is curious to see how the markets react. Despite all this tension between countries, we started the year with the Brazilian stock market rising, breaking records, and the dollar falling. This is excellent for those planning to travel or invest outside the country. The fall of the dollar, inclusive, can be seen as a strategy of the United States to make their products cheaper and competitive worldwide. In the world of digital currencies, the so-called stablecoins, which are digital currencies that are worth the same as real assets, like the dollar, reached impressive transaction volumes in the house of trillions. This shows that many people are using these assets to send money from one country to another, seeking speed and escaping that boring bureaucracy of traditional banks. Meanwhile, gold and silver continue rising in price, which reflects the fear and uncertainty of investors with this global mess. Oil also went back up, driven by the fights in Venezuela and data from the American economy. Whenever the price of the oil barrel falls too much, something happens in international politics that makes the price rise again, maintaining the balance for large producers to make money. Looking here at our neighbors in Latin America, Argentina has been a positive highlight. The changes in the economy and the rigorous control of expenses reduced the risk of investing in the country, and poverty started to show signs of falling, coming out of very worrying numbers. It is an example of how internal economic policy can change the direction of a nation, even when the world outside is complicated. As for Europe, the approval of the agreement with the Southern Common Market, after decades of negotiation, is a sign that the European bloc wants to have more trade partners, trying not to depend so much on China. And speaking of governments and international politics, the situation in Venezuela is critical and can cause a domino effect. The instability of the government of Nicolas Maduro and the pressure from other countries can lead to the fall of his regime. If this happens, the impact on Cuba will be immediate and very strong. Cuba depends economically on oil and help from Venezuela. Without this support, the humanitarian crisis on the island, which already faces a lack of electricity and outbreaks of diseases, tends to worsen drastically, potentially leading to the collapse of the system that exists there today. Another point of tension is Iran. Protests inside the country and pressure from outside put the religious government there in a delicate position. But a direct military intervention, like invading, is complicated, because dropping bombs could make the population turn against the West, instead of turning against their oppressive government. The strategy of the United States seems to be to suffocate their economy and indirectly support internal changes. Finally, the United States continues with strategic interest in Greenland, eyeing its geographical position and natural riches. Although the idea of buying the island seems strange, it reflects the new race for territories there in the Arctic. Summarizing the whole story, we are living in a period of general instability. It is not the Third World War like we imagined, but it is a globalized, mixed conflict with various faces. It involves economy, technology, diplomacy, and, of course, military force in some points. For Brazil, the strategy has been to maintain friendship with all powers, acting with care. It remains to be seen how long it will be possible to stay on the fence like this. The 21st century started for real now, and instability will be the new normal. The big question that remains is, what will be the next piece of this global domino to fall? Now that you have seen the full board, play the analyst here with me. In your view, what is the next piece of this domino that will fall in 2026? The fall of Maduro in Venezuela, the invasion of Taiwan, or some surprise that no one is seeing? Leave your prediction in the comments, because I will check later to see who got it right. And for you not to be caught by surprise when the next piece falls and already know exactly how to position yourself, stick with us, leave the like, and leave the hype. Let's follow every movement of this board together.
Nelle sole sul rossi pa che muoversi ya!